Term global warming has been used, it's not actually as accurate as climate change. So climate change is the overall temperatures over thousands of years, and even the term climate change isn't all that accurate either. So we're going to look here at everything that's going to change. So the author Margaret Atwood, she was the first to term it everything change, and I'm going with that. So as the oceans warm and we lose that ice, there's going to be the effect of surface albedo, which is this ice is reflective because it's white, and as it melts, it's going to become dark ocean, which is not reflective. So there's going to be a feedback loop, which is positive feedback as far as melting, that it's just going to melt faster because this is going to be warmer, because of less reflection of that infrared. And there's going to be sea level rise as these as the melting occurs. There will be more water. More water in the ocean means changes in the ocean chemistry, the temperature of the ocean, the currents and the circulation of the ocean, the salinity of the ocean, and as a result, all the marine habitats, everything that lives in the oceans, those are going to be affected by the changes in ocean chemistry. There are some benefits, though. There will be shipping lanes open, direct shipping lanes between Europe and North America directly to China and Russia if all that ice is gone. There's going to be more land for agriculture if Greenland is going to not be covered with ice, can be farmed. And also northern hemisphere forests will have more growth. So there are some positive effects. The biggest effect from climate change is going to be sea level rise, which will affect just about every human on the planet, whether you live on the coast or not.
In 1992, they measured this amount of melting in Greenland. 10 years later, this is what happened. And here's the melting from 2005. Tony Blair's scientific advisor has said that because of what's happening in Greenland right now, the maps of the world will have to be redrawn. If Greenland broke up and melted, or if half of Greenland and half of West Antarctica broke up and melted, this is what would happen to the sea level in Florida. This is what would happen to San Francisco Bay. A lot of people live in these areas. The Netherlands, one of the low countries, absolutely devastating. The area around Beijing that's home to tens of millions of people. Even worse, in the area around Shanghai, there are 40 million people. Worse still, Calcutta and to the east Bangladesh, the area covered includes 60 million people. Think of the impact of a couple 100,000 refugees when they're displaced by an environmental event. And then imagine the impact of 100 million or more.
So climate change is something that not any individual or any one country can handle. It's something that every country in the world will need to be involved on. So this is these intergovernmental panels on climate change have met every 5 years or so, and this was a report from 2014 which took the scientific data and said that the human influence on Earth's climate is human-caused emissions of greenhouse gases. And so it was promising because it was all governments in the world agreeing on this. And that it's going to get warmer was also part of it. So we have greenhouse gases and it's going to get warmer. And this intergovernmental panel in particular in 2014 led to the Paris Agreement in 2015. And there has since been another IPCC report in 2018 that basically says we're counting down until there's really some major issues that there's no one going back from. But the question is, what can we expect in the future? As I mentioned, everything's going to change. So this is a kind of joking around about sea level change. Are we going to have our meetings underwater? because of sea level rise, which will affect just about every human on the planet, either directly or indirectly from migration. There are going to be changes in ocean chemistry and extreme weather. So these are links that are not necessarily understood by regular citizens or politicians. And hurricanes can be directly correlated to warmer temperatures, more water evaporation, and that means bigger clouds. Bigger clouds means bigger storms and hurricanes. Already hot, like Phoenix, the summer highs could reach 130 degrees Fahrenheit. We know in LA it's already warm, and warming even by a couple degrees tips it to 95 and 100 degrees. Drought and wildfires. This is long-term effects of having warm summers and extended summers into the fall and spring. Though forest fires are complicated, it has to do with forest management, that the more days that we have hot days, the more likelihood that there's going to be fires that are started from things that would not necessarily start fires because the trees were already dried out because of a drought. I should add loss of biodiversity, human health. This is all from the idea that we're going to have less animals, plants that cannot adapt, and there's also going to be more insects like mosquitoes in areas that shouldn't have them because they're higher temperature. On the plus side, though, there should be some new jobs and careers in climate resilience programs like solar installation, which was the solar installer was the #1 job growth in 2019. The thing that's really truly unfair about this is that us humans have this impact, and it's impacting the world, and these guys don't have a say in it, and they have no way to solve this problem. Same thing with these corals, living things. They didn't cause this problem, but they're going to be impacted by this. And so what can we or what should we do about climate change? So carbon dioxide emissions are another example, sort of tragedy of the commons. Instead of carbon dioxide being a resource that we all use and abuse, carbon dioxide is something that we all generate. So it's not exactly tragedy of the commons, but it is in a sense that somebody needs to take responsibility of this. And here's the thing, is that we all can take some responsibility in this on a small level in a carbon footprint. Carbon footprint is what you're responsible for generating, not just in what you're exhaling as you sit here with respiration, but it's also your travel and the electricity you use in your home and the stuff you buy, including your food, which we'll get into. Food has the biggest impact due to agriculture practices. The stuff you buy, the goods, the services, the things you do, it all is linked to your output of carbon dioxide in total. And so this, we can see the U.S. has the outsized impact, the largest footprint compared to other countries. And what's important to see is the average is 2.7. So we're more than double that in the U.S. But you can still have a life like in China or in Mexico or in France and not necessarily have so much carbon dioxide output. So what else we can do in addition to changing your lifestyle and reducing your carbon footprint? Action plans for changing politicians, for getting some legislation. Okay, and so what has happened through the years is that legislation has tried to pass through, and as I mentioned, it needs to be every country in the world on board, just like the Montreal Protocol for banning chlorofluorocarbons. We need every country on the world on board for lowering carbon dioxide emissions. So there were some bumps along the way. There was an early one in 1997 that was not signed by the US or China, but the Paris Agreement 2015 was the first universal legally binding action plan, and it was signed by the US and China. And so that was really promising. It was actually a great celebration in environmental circles,